Ever since that last day under fire in Dachau, I felt that a leg split on a broken ladder wasn't quite a wounded one. We'd been up in the loft of a small barn, a French barn, several of us, trying to set up an OP with a little glimpse through the shingles or something where we could see the Germans over the other side of this course. And there was one of the companies was getting ready to jump off on the attack. And just at that moment, German artillery fire came in on us. And everybody dispersed, and we got down. There was a little cellar in this place. And this old ladder was up. Jimmy, Andy's at Pecky, my old buddy, went down the ladder feet first. You know, usually you don't go down the ladder feet first. If you go down backside, you back down it. But he went down feet first, and he got halfway down, and he slipped a little bit and fell, and the old ladder busted in half. And I was on the top rung. And the ladder was sort of quivering there, and I went down, and I gashed my left shin along the broken edge of the ladder. And when I got down below there to see what was going on, one of the guys said, "Hey, you got blood all over your pants." Well, I had a long wound that long was out like that, and I was rehabbed back, and was ultimately sent back to Naples with the 300th General Hospital, and I was fixed up, sewed up. I was perfectly ready to go, and all ready to, well, I wouldn't say ready, but I was fit to go back to combat and rejoin my outfit. But it was the intervention of my dad and his doctor friends who had my status changed from infantryman to working in the medical corps, and that's the way I worked for a field hospital, and that's the way I spent the rest of the war until I went back to the States. But that was where I think I climbed the first rung of the ladder of guilt. The sense that I'd gotten out of it free and clear. I was in good shape. I could have gone back, but I was spared going back, and I felt tremendously relieved on the one hand. On the other hand, I felt guilty as hell. But I left my buddies behind. They were up there fighting it through. Terrible battles. Ending up, as I said, with the liberation of Dachau at the end of it. Terrible battles. And it just pursued me. And it pursued me after the war was over. And it intermittently pursued me. It didn't become a preoccupation. But when I began to try to write about this book, I got myself over and over and over again. I would get myself up to the point where I was just going in the front line and just going into action. And I hit a block. And I couldn't get myself into action because it was that getting into action that somehow or other brought back to me so with such force the situation that I had been in, where I had effectively gotten out of it free, and the other guys had, and that's it. Ever since that last day under fire in Dachau, I felt that a leg split on a broken ladder wasn't quite a wounded one, that the Purple Heart I got for it was borderline, never mind that it was part of a chain of events due to enemy action as if I'd taken a hit, and that my limited service reclassification despite 11 months in combat was a cop-out on the guys I left behind. For 50 years I saw my pain and immobility after becoming a casualty as an occult, psychogenic manifestation of guilt verging on cowardice, reinforced by having been consigned to the psycho ward at the hospital. Or it may just as well have been a transient infectious disease manifested by acute arthritis-like symptoms. No matter. After 50 years of latent combat post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, that blocked my recognition of it and my ability to tackle the guts of this volume, it began to sink in that every survivor of combat endowed with a shred of compassion since men have gone to war feels some measure of guilt to be alive and must ask himself why he was spared when he thinks of comrades who weren't. Not to make too fine a point of it, I'm relieved now to be thoroughly glad to have survived. I owe completion of this work in large part to an evening of intense enlightenment 13 years ago with Boston psychiatrist Jonathan Shay. His compassionate bridging with intensely suffering Vietnam war survivors through his work with the Veterans Administration led to his pioneering recognition in the 1994 landmark book Achilles in Vietnam, that the Greek poet Homer described essentially the same behavior among the combatants in the Trojan War some 3,200 years ago. Dr. Shay postulated, correctly I believe, that each of us who has been to war in harm's way over the centuries has stood high or low on some rung of the aftermath's haunting ladder of guilt if only for having come out of it alive. And I give you Dr. Shay.
It's really delightful to be given credit for something that people have seen for many, many years and said many, many times. If there's anything that was original in Achilles in Vietnam, it was the totally accidental idea that actually the Iliad is about war and is about what matters to soldiers. And apparently that was new, which still astonishes me. How could that be? But it's I'm totally delighted to have had the chance to help bring this amazing and riveting book out into the world. I know that I did help, and I'm deeply gratified by that. I got Joe's permission to to tell you my version of the story, and that is that Helen Garland called me and asked if I would be willing to come visit with them, and I can't remember the exact details. It may have been that my wife Vicki and I were visiting old friends in Rockport anyway, and so it was an easy thing to do. But one thing and another, so we went there and met Joe and Helen, and I heard about the fact that he had been working for years and years on a book about his experience in World War II, and that he had gotten stuck with it. And
How's true? I was stuck.
And
I was not. I wasn't flat. I started it, and then I went back to work with other books, and so I got various other books and writing, and so columns for the Gloucester Times and all the rest out of it.
17 published books at the time we met.
Back then, yeah.
So this was not a man who didn't know how to write.
Not a man of few words.
But in any case, he said that he had 150 pages of this manuscript, and would I be willing to have a look at it and see if any ideas came to mind? And I agreed, yeah, I'll do that. And so I read this 150 pages, which the first 150 pages of this book has almost no resemblance at all. But I remember very clearly what I said to Joe after reading it. I said, Joe, you have very well and convincingly sketched portraits of every member of your platoon, and you reflect credit on every single one of them. And furthermore, you tell the story of how you were sort of headed through training and being fit into a grand strategy, into an operational plan, how you were coming to this very first fight. And the picture that this seems to come on and off. Maybe I should just put it aside. Well, there we are, back again. I said the picture you paint is one of enormous rationality and planfulness and serious, deliberate thought. And I said to him, I've never been to war. You've been to war. But at that point, 10 or 12 years of working with combat veterans, that they had always said to me, Doc, war is always random. It's full of the dice rolling. It is a world of insanity, that the good people get killed, complete dirtbags survive it. There's no rationality to it at all. And